I feel better about our independence sitting here right now than I felt even when I first came into the role.
From the campus of Our Lady's University, this is For Good, Stories from Notre Dame, a behind-the-scenes glimpse into life under the Golden Dome and the powerful stories that drive Notre Dame to become a force for good in the world. Hello and welcome to For Good, Stories from Notre Dame. Navigating the shifting landscape of intercollegiate athletics is a very difficult task, but it is particularly challenging here at Notre Dame, where there is a special emphasis on preserving the university's distinctive and unmatched student-athlete experience. That is the charge given to our guest today, Pete Bevacqua, the James E. Rohr Director of Athletics at the University of Notre Dame. Pete, thanks so much for being with us For Good, Stories from Notre Dame. I'm really excited about our conversation today. Why don't we start off and tell us a little bit about your background, your family, and what brought you back to your alma mater?
Oh, sure, Lou. First of all, it's great to be here, and what a setting, right? Yeah. The 18th hole at the Warren course, just amazing, a beautiful day. As I've told people, I literally don't have a memory in my life that doesn't somehow include Notre Dame. My dad was a 1955 grad. I'm the youngest of five, four older sisters, grew up just outside of New York City in a little town, Bedford, New York, and we were absolutely brainwashed from birth. Everything, it was Notre Dame, Notre Dame, Notre Dame. As I tell people, my vacations when I was a kid, like 7th grade, 8th grade, my dad and I would hop in a car in Bedford, drive out to Notre Dame and watch football practice over the summer. I mean, that's how kind of over the top we were. And I remember before Notre Dame football games were all the home games on NBC. Every other game we play is on NBC, CBS, Fox, you name it, ESPN. But back in the 70s, my father had this transistor radio that in retrospect was huge. Yeah. And he would, when the games weren't on TV, he would run like Forrest Gump and just run and take some change. And at the end of the game, he'd call us and we'd have to go pick him up to wherever he ran to. And it could be, a 30-minute drive, a 45-minute drive. He would just run and listen to the game. And if they won, Notre Dame won, it would be a nice, pleasant car ride home. And if we lost, we wouldn't talk to each other because the whole week would be ruined. So I grew up absolutely.
So he would like release tension
by running,
run and
literally hold the radio to his ear and run and listen to the game.
Oh my God!
Because he would get so antsy.
He was ahead of the boombox.
He was ahead of the boombox. Yeah.
Wow.
So again, just grew up loving Notre Dame. When it came time to apply to school, my four sisters, my oldest sister went to St. Mary's, had two sisters that went to Notre Dame. Notre Dame was the only school I applied to. Didn't even think for a second about applying anywhere else. And luckily got in and came here, and everybody says, well, there were such expectations. You had such a buildup for Notre Dame. Did it live up to the expectations? And it did. It wildly exceeded them. And I loved my 4 years here.
Yeah.
And when I graduated from Notre Dame, I really had no idea what I wanted to do. I was an English major, kind of concocted a film minor, took a lot of film classes, and actually went back to my home area. Actually went back to Greenwich, Connecticut, where I'd gone to high school and taught for a year, and really used that year to figure out what I wanted to do next, and taught 6th grade algebra, 8th grade English, 11th grade English, coached the 8th grade football team, the 8th grade basketball team, and the golf team. Ultimately decided to go to law school, and that was kind of the end of the education standpoint of my career. But my time at Notre Dame and my childhood of like all things Notre Dame, when I got the call from Father John about this idea, would I be interested in being the athletic director here at Notre Dame? It was a no-brainer for me. It was a instantaneous decision.
It's amazing that it's a no-brainer because here you are at the pinnacle of sports. I mean, you are the head of NBC Sports, the chair, the leader of everything. And so you take a significant pay cut to come back to your alma mater, and you have everything at your disposal at NBC Sports. Give us a little bit more. We understand your passion, but was it hard to leave?
I'll tell you that I absolutely loved what I was doing at NBC and was not looking to leaving. I could have easily had seen myself at NBC for the rest of my career. Mm-hmm. It's a great organization run by people I really admire, starting with Brian Roberts, who's the head of Comcast. And there was never a dull moment at NBC, because this whole transition of media from a broadcast first, cable second approach to a broadcast streaming approach, the unbelievable role sports plays in media now, where if you look at statistics, the top 100 shows in 2023, 92 of them were sporting events. So it's kind of the golden age of sports and media. So it was a thrill. Yeah. I loved it. I loved the fact that we had Notre Dame as a partner and other great partners, whether it's Sunday Night Football, the Olympics, you could go on and on. So was not looking to leave. I truly could not have been happier personally and professionally. Mm-hmm. We lived in New Canaan, Connecticut. The family was happy. But it's just that pull. I think it's why so many of us are here. I've never been motivated by money. And, maybe that's an easy thing to say, but I haven't. Yeah. And so it wasn't a monetary decision in terms of taking a pay cut to come here. It was the opportunity to come back to Notre Dame, a place I absolutely adore. Yeah. As I told Father John at the time, with the exception of my family, literally over the course of my lifetime, nothing has meant more for me. And to come back here at this moment in time where Notre Dame is so well positioned, but the college sports landscape is going through unprecedented times of chaos. Mm-hmm. And everything that makes Notre Dame special, everything that makes the student-athlete experience at Notre Dame different, unique, it's more under siege than ever before. But Lou, I think it's also more valuable and more important than ever before. And to be able to come here in this role and to help guide us in that regard over the course of the next decade or so, as long as I'm lucky enough to be here, I could never have lived with myself waking up at some point, let's say next fall, and watching a Notre Dame football game and saying, well, I could have been athletic director there. Like that would just have not sat well with me. And my family gets it. Yeah. My wife, Tiffany, who was a college athlete, not here at Notre Dame, but she played basketball and softball in college. She knows what Notre Dame means to me. Our 3 children. Yeah, our daughter.
Ages, give the ages.
Yeah, our daughter Samantha is 16. Got her license about 2 weeks ago. She's a sophomore, so she'll be a junior here next year at St. Joe in town. The boys, Arthur, who's named after my father, who started all this madness of Notre Dame in our family. Arthur's 14. He'll be an 8th grader at St. Pius. And Jake's our little guy who's in 5th grade, 10 years old. He'll be a 6th grader at St. Pius next year.
We're so thrilled that you came back home. And we can't wait to welcome your entire family this summer and to have them all here. But let's be clear, when you came back to Notre Dame, you were not the most famous Bevacqua. And you may still not yet have exceeded the reputation of your sister. So tell us a little bit about that dynamic.
I am Stephanie Bevacqua's little brother, for sure. So many people on campus. And it's interesting because Stephanie's husband, Jim Collins, has been a professor at Notre Dame for well over 30 years, was the chair of FTT for years. He's a new chair in a new department now. And so I thought I'd hear, Jim Collins. But everybody was, you Pete Bevacqua, you have to be Stephanie's little brother. And Stephanie, whose husband is Jim, Stephanie has been the kindergarten teacher at ECDC here on campus for 25, 26, 27 years.
Yeah, the Early Childhood Development Center.
Yeah, and so many people, so many colleagues, so many people who are part of Notre Dame, she has taught their sons and daughters. And just has a larger-than-life personality.
She does. She is legendary.
Yeah, she is funny. Of the 5 of us, she's the most like my father.
Is she really?
So you can imagine what he must have been like. Yeah.
More likely to run with a transistor radio to her head.
Exactly. Although that's so much easier now, right?
Well, you're off to an incredible start. We just come off recently a weekend together in Philly, the city of brotherly love, which was really good to you. You have to be the first athletic director in Notre Dame history to win a national championship. You start April 1st and you get before the end of May, you get a national championship. What was feeling?
First of all, I have to correct you. It was March 27th.
Oh.
I don't want it to be April 1st because that's April Fool's Day.
Okay, you
So
started.
we kind of Father John purposely decided that you shouldn't start on April Fool's Day. Like that would set the wrong tone.
Okay.
But it was amazing. I was lucky. I went to so many of the lacrosse team's games over the season, and Kevin Corrigan, who's one of the legendary coaches, what he's done here at Notre Dame, what he's really done for the sport of lacrosse. I mean, it was always a sport that was so dominated by that Northeast corridor.
Yeah.
And what Kevin has been able to do here at Notre Dame is, I think more than anybody, has really nationalized the sport. It was always such a regional sport. It was huge where I grew up.
Right.
But what he's the growth that has led to what Notre Dame has kind of been a catalyst for is remarkable. But it's a special team. I mean, it starts with Kevin, it starts with Coach Corrigan. But you think about the leadership on that team with Pat and Chris Kavanaugh, Liam Entenman. You see how close they are, how they enjoy each other's company. And what I said to my wife Tiffany, like they were clearly the best team in the country all year, no doubt about it. But that doesn't mean you're going to win the ACC championship. That doesn't mean you're going to win the NCAA championship. And I almost got to the point where they're so good and everything is so it's happening according to plan. Like, are we going to slip up?
Right.
And to their credit and to Kevin's credit, it was just such a dominant performance. You think about that ACC run, and then you think about the NCAA, and just little things like it was the rain delay on Monday going to throw them off their game. And then we start out, and before you can blink, they're down 2-0, and then you blink again, and it's like, okay, second quarter in the games, we look pretty good.
Yeah.
And just to see it all come together for this special group of Notre Dame student athletes. And in my short time as athletic director, one of the things I will always cherish is Kevin and the team do a graduation for the players that are seniors and graduate students because they're off campus.
Right.
They're off site. And we had one at Chaminade High School.
And you were the commencement speaker.
And I was the commencement speaker.
Yeah.
And just, seeing their families and seeing the student athletes that were graduating in their caps and gowns and seeing them come up to stage and the emotions that they shared with Kevin. I mean, that's what it's all about.
Incredibly special moment, and what a way to begin your tenure.
I got back and I saw Jack Swarbrick, who's has been so amazing to me this year. And I said, Jack, this is easy. 2 months, national championship. I said, at this pace, right? I mean, this is going to be wonderful.
Well, that leads perfectly into the next question. You said, look at the setting that we're in, as you mentioned, at Warren Golf Course. I mean, you've had an incredible career in the golf world, in addition to broadcast, but leading the USGA and then leading for several years very successfully the PGA Tour. We're here, and you have once said, I've heard, that one of the best ways to learn the sport of golf is to caddy.
Yeah.
And so you've had a chance over the past 9 months or so to caddy of sorts under Jack Swarbrick. What have you learned? What were the major takeaways during that period of time? And it's kind of a unique transition. Most athletic directors come in and day one is their first day on the job.
Fire.
Yeah, you're thrown into the fire. How is this worked well, do you think, for you? And will it serve Notre Dame well?
Well, I think it's a credit to Notre Dame. There aren't many major universities that can set this transition process up this way. Mm-hmm. At the athletic director role, from Jack to me, and then more importantly at the top of the top with Father John to Father Bob. You see all the uncertainty, all the chaos in the university landscape these days, and to be able to do that with the athletic director and the president, I think it's an unbelievable testament to what this university is all about. To me, it was amazing because I was not an athletic director. Mm-hmm. And as I've said to anybody, it's not as though I had some burning passion to be an athletic director. I wouldn't have considered being an athletic director anywhere else for even a half a second. Mm-hmm. Notre Dame's just different in that regard. And what's also great is I know Jack so well. Mm-hmm. I mean, I built a relationship with Jack before I was at NBC, even when I was at the PGA of America, and then clearly during my NBC days, because Notre Dame's such a key partner of NBC. So I've always admired him, got to know him, mm-hmm. and he just absolutely welcomed me with open arms. included me in everything. The conversation, some of my favorite memories of those 8 or so months would be just Jack and I sitting in his office or my office and talking about anything. It certainly could be Notre Dame, student athletes, all everything that's going on in the landscape, but it would move to music and movies. And we both grew up in suburban New York. We both went to Notre Dame, obviously. We both were lawyers who ended up being athletic directors. We have so many similarities in that regard. And just seeing him in action, and I think the people around the Notre Dame community certainly have an unbelievable appreciation for what Jack did here at Notre Dame. Look around the campus, Crossroads, Compton, where the football program was when Jack became AD to where it is now. You go on and on and on. But I don't think people, some do, Father John does, for instance, but many don't have an appreciation of what he's done for Notre Dame externally, whether that's the endless trips he made to Congress, whether that's being such a powerful, respected voice for Notre Dame in the NCAA, what he's done in his work with the ACC and being able to maneuver in a way where we could join the ACC conference for our Olympic sports, yet maintain our independence in football. The presence of being one of the real and key architects of the CFP. I mean, he is the college football playoffs, which is so important, obviously, to Notre Dame football. But he is truly one of the really respected, highly regarded, reasonable people in college sports. That people, he and Father John, they were this perfect combination at the perfect time, representing the world of athletic directors, representing the world of college presidents. The two of them are held in such high regard. And I think, those are big shoes to fill for me, certainly big shoes to fill for Father Bob. But again, both Father Bob and I have the great luxury of having this transition, as opposed to your point, just being kind of thrown in and, hey, here you go.
Right.
Figure it out.
And given your background in broadcast, and then also in professional sports, how do you think that's going to make you a different kind of leader as athletic director at Notre Dame?
Well, media is such a key part of every landscape, but certainly the college sports landscape. It's no secret, Lou, that media is driving conference realignment. It's driving the CFP and the decisions around the CFP. The economics of media and the dependence of the college landscape and college sports landscape on those major media deals are at an all-time high. Right. And one of the first things we had to do, and Jack and I tackled it together, was kind of redo our NBC deal and get us into a better economic footing to be prepared for the future. So the media chops and the media experience, I think, is incredibly healthy. As it relates to professional sports, I think what the great advantage that will give me in this role, I think, is the network of people that I know. Whether that's Roger Goodell, Adam Silver, Rob Manfred, Gary Bettman, knowing and having a professional relationship, but also a personal relationship with those leaders in sports around the country. Those are good resources for us. What's going on in those leagues? How is that going to impact the college landscape? I think that will serve our student athletes well, those that are skilled enough and lucky enough to make that transition into professional sports. Even though I was a lawyer, I quickly moved into the world of sports since early in 2000 in many different roles. And you build relationships with people over that time in different ways, and you never know how that's going to pay off. A perfect example is Tony Petitti. I mean, I became dear friends with Tony Petitti through golf, playing a ton of golf together, and really through his time at Major League Baseball, where we sat down and negotiated deals together. And then lo and behold, he's the commissioner of the Big Ten. I'm the athletic director of Notre Dame, and that's a really important relationship. So I like to think, and I hope I'm right, that whether it's the legal training, being at a law firm.
There's no fears for anybody looking out there that we're going to join the Big Ten in football, given that relationship, right?
I would tell you, I feel better about our independence sitting here right now than I felt even when I first came into the role. And I'll tell you, sitting down with Father John when we were having these discussions, we would talk to each other about our feeling about independence, and it quickly was apparent, far more important what he thinks than what I think, but independence is part of the DNA of Notre Dame football. And I believe that vehemently. And the fact that we have the new CFP deal, where from a revenue standpoint and an access standpoint, we're in great shape. That we have the new NBC deal, that we have what I think for Notre Dame is without a doubt the best coach for Notre Dame in the country, with an amazing group of assistant coaches around him. And then also importantly, Lou, with the CFP, college football playoffs, going from 4 teams to 12 teams and maybe ultimately 14 teams. And as I like to say, if you were Marcus Freeman, I mean, I couldn't even have that conversation because, for him, it's undefeated every year, never lose another game. And that's what makes Marcus Marcus. But, I have to play the percentages.
Right.
And as an independent in a 14 playoff, we have to go undefeated most likely. Maybe we can go 11-1, but that gets dicey. When it goes to 12 teams, maybe 14 teams in a couple of years, 12-0, 11-1, 10-2 are really looking good. 9-3, even 10-2, 9-3, it's questionable. But to win national championships, and we have to win a national championship in football, you got to keep knocking on the door.
Yep.
And our ability with those different elements coming together, NBC deal, the redo of the CFP, Marcus, the expansion of the teams, we'll be able to knock on the door far more frequently than we have before.
Really exciting stuff. You're a Soren Hall. We call it Soren College. Both of us, residents.
We almost have a double degree, right?
That's right. Exactly right. And you and Shannon Cullinan are 93 classmates who both are Soren College grads in Notre Dame as well. But I'm a little threatened by your arrival. I was like the Italian guy here, Are you
100%?
I'm 100%.
Okay,
yeah, 100%. But now we've got kind of this younger, better-looking, better-dressed version here on campus, and I feel displaced. So, but together,
I won't argue with the younger, but that's the others we can. I need your hair. The hair. I have no hair. I'm bald.
Together, how many years off do you think we are for becoming the Fighting Italians at Notre Dame?
I think we're going to unveil that next fall. Yeah, that's top secret, but that's where we're headed.
Okay, just for those watching, I promise you, there's no truth to that rumor. All right, on a more serious note. You are navigating perhaps some of the most choppy waters that we've ever experienced in intercollegiate athletics. Just to name a few in a crude way, name, image, and likeness, NIL, the transfer portal, conference realignment, which seems to be random and occurring, too frequently, the loss of amateurism, the whole role of a student athlete being designated as an employee. Long-term health issues. What protocols do we need to put in place for student athletes after they've graduated? Financial solvency as it pertains to all of these dynamics. And then Title IX, equity on the male-female issues. When you think about all of those issues, what concerns you the most, and how do you break that down? How do you get up every morning and try to navigate these choppy waters?
Yeah, the good news is we're Notre Dame.
Yeah.
And we know who we are. And, I think Notre Dame, and you could speak better to this than anybody, but has never been healthier in terms of whether it's the academic reputation, the athletic reputation, the financial resources, the type of applicants we get year in and year out. So we know who we are, we know our mission, and we know we can weather this storm. I think universities that lack that clear identity are going to be in a lot of trouble. You talk about NIL, you talk about the transfer portal, Title IX, what I'm sure many of the people who will watch this at some point, the settlements around the major law cases, House Hubbard and others, that the NCAA and by extension the Power 5 conferences in Notre Dame are part of. Yeah, there's turmoil, and we could talk about each forever. We could talk about NIL and whether you think it's the best thing ever or ruining college sports, it's here to stay, and we have to be aggressive and we have to be strategic. We can talk about the transfer portal. And, Notre, I've been talking to Marcus as recently as this morning, and he always says, in football, we're going to major in high school players. That's the pipeline for Notre Dame. That's the mission. That allows you to build a great culture. But you have to be opportunistic, and you have to go into the transfer portal to fill a need. So all of those, Title IX, critical to Notre Dame. I narrow it down to two things that we need to be guided by, and it's really the student athlete experience at Notre Dame. Mm-hmm. One of the great differentiating factors for us is our student athletes are just that. They're student athletes. Mm-hmm. And when I meet with recruits, any sport, I'll sit down with that young man or young woman and say, listen, you're going to have all the resources in the world to compete athletically. You're going to have the best facilities. You're going to have the best coaches. We're going to be at the head of the line when it comes to sports science. But you're also going to get that on the academic side. And you have to come here with eyes wide open because it's hard. Mm-hmm. It's hard to be a student at Notre Dame. It's incredibly hard to be a student athlete because these young people really have no time. When you think about all the academic responsibilities and rigors, and then you couple that with what it means to be a Notre Dame athlete, that student athlete experience is difficult, but it's worth it. And it doesn't make sense to every young person, but to the ones that will thrive here, it rings the bell and it makes sense, and they embrace that challenge. Mm-hmm. We have to make sure in this evolving landscape of college sports with NIL and the transfer portal and conference realignment that we don't lose what it means to be a student athlete. Mm-hmm. And when I'm talking to Father John or Father Bob and we talk about priorities and what are my goals, mm-hmm. I will have failed if somebody walks on this campus in a few years and you feel like you've entered into a segregated campus. And by that, I mean, there are the students and there are the athletes, and they're living two separate lives. Yeah. That's not what it means to come here at Notre Dame to play a sport, to be a student athlete. And I've said this, recently, I'll ask when I sit down with a student athlete, at some point in the conversation, I'll say, hey, Lou, so who are some of your best friends? Mm-hmm. And inevitably, they'll mention other people on their team. They'll mention a couple of people on other teams. But what I love to hear, and I almost hear person to person and without exception, is about a theology major, an English major, a PLS major, mm-hmm. somebody who's never picked up a ball, thrown a ball, hit a golf ball in their lives. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's the Notre Dame experience. Yeah. We bring people from all over the country, all over the world together to be educated here. And we can't lose that.
So the integration of the student athlete into all aspects of life on campus, really critical to your
critical
tenure.
Because we have some of the best student athletes in the country. Mm-hmm. But whether your sports career ends at 18 or 21 or mm-hmm. 38, it's going to end.
Yeah.
And what it means to be part of the Notre Dame family and that Notre Dame education is going to be super important. The other element, and you talked about health issues and long-term issues, when we speak to recruits and when our colleges talk to recruits, we are so proud of saying Notre Dame's not a 4-year decision, it's a forever decision. Mm-hmm. And we do a wonderful job when you're here at Notre Dame, and I'm so excited about what we can continue to build off on the forever side. Right. So so well, but so excited about the Jack and Kathy Shields Family Hall, the mm-hmm. new football facility. Right. And the fact that the primary drivers, revenue drivers, donors behind that were 3 former Notre Dame football players in Jack Shields, Pat Eilers, and Dave Butler. That's mm-hmm. a great story. Yeah. What I'm also really excited about is Jack Shields is somebody who's so passionate about this concept called LAND, Life mm-hmm. After Notre Dame. Yeah. And what that is for us is for all of our student athletes, you're always going to have a home at Notre Dame. You're always going to have a resource at Notre Dame. And that could be something as easy as, hey, all of a sudden you're 25, you were having a promising career in the WNBA and something happened and mm-hmm. now you need to go find a job and you never set up a LinkedIn account. You never put a resume together. Right. You want to interact and get connected to that Notre Dame alumni base in a particular field you want to go into, whether it's the law, teaching, acting, mm-hmm. finance, whatever it might be. LAND will help you. Yeah. Or something far more serious, Lou, if it's substance abuse, mm-hmm. mental health, depression, we'll be a resource for you. Hopefully you as the former student athlete will know that. We'll make sure your former teammates know that. So when someone in that moment of desperation, when somebody needs help, Notre Dame can be a resource for that person.
That's beautiful.
That's important.
It sets the program apart. It sets the whole culture apart that we don't forget about you long after your playing days. You're part of the family.
And we, hey, we don't we have authorship of this.
Yeah.
But our hope is that it becomes a national model.
That's right.
Because we want it to benefit student athletes all over the country. But there's nothing more Notre Dame than that, in my opinion.
So one of the unique roles that you have, there's so many unique roles as being athletic director at Notre Dame. You're like a conference commissioner. You're part of the whole media and college football playoff system. You have a seat at the table. So it's so much bigger than a traditional athletic director role. But you also have, as an independent in football, the burden of responsibility when it comes to scheduling.
Yeah.
And building those schedules. So how do you think, what insights can you give us to how you will think about scheduling the football program years out?
Well, it's a great question, and it's an important question, and it's one of the trickiest things we have ahead of us.
Mm-hmm.
And we're lucky because we have, in my opinion, the very best person in the country who leads this for us in Ron Powless. Mm-hmm. And pretty much everybody knows that Ron Powless out there. I mean, Ron was an amazing student athlete, an amazing quarterback here at Notre Dame, and we're so lucky to have him here as a key part of our team. It's getting harder and harder. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have the NBC deal, we have the new CFP deal, we have the expanded playoffs, we have all that's going to help us. But is, as the major conferences, really the SEC and the Big Ten, have grown and gotten more competitive. When you think about the Big Ten with the inclusion of USC and UCLA and now others, when you think about the SEC adding Oklahoma and Texas, mm-hmm. those conference schedules for those teams are really difficult.
Yeah.
And if you're a Michigan or if you're an Alabama or a Georgia, and you fight your way through that conference schedule, if you're with a head coach of one of those teams and you're now told by your athletic director, now you have to go play Notre Dame,
right.
That's tough.
Yeah.
We have an obligation twofold. As part of our NBC deal, we owe it to our media partner. We need those big time,
right.
great, wonderful rivalries that the whole country pays attention to. And we need the strength of our schedule is going to be more important than ever in working our way into that expanded playoffs. Mm-hmm. So it's going to get the combination of it getting more complicated, more difficult for those teams to want to play Notre Dame, and more important for us than ever, both from a media standpoint, not only to fulfill our obligations to NBC now, but also to position ourselves as a valuable partner in the next round of media negotiations, right. which are a few years off, mm-hmm. but you blink an eye and 6 years goes by. Mm-hmm. We need to do that. And Ron and I, a day doesn't pass where we're not talking about our schedule, who we should add, what we should move around. Now, the good news for us and preparation-wise is we're pretty well scheduled through 2030. Mm-hmm. We have some holes, but we think they're opportunistic holes.
That's fantastic. Well, add that to the pile of challenges before you, but it's good to hear that it's something that is a front burner issue for you and that you and Ron are concentrating on it each and every day. One of the things that seems to me when we look across the 26 sports that we have at Notre Dame is that we are blessed with outstanding coach educators, if you will. They embody the values of Notre Dame. They have great expertise that they bring to their particular sport, and they're great role models for our student athletes. Can you share any insights about our coach educators, the staff that you are taking over, and or any anecdotes?
Yeah, I would tell you, Lou, like our student athletes, I mean, when you decide to come here as a coach, you're, as Marcus likes to say, choosing hard. Mm-hmm. Because it's not just about performance on the field or on the court. That's a lot of it.
Yep.
But you have to do it the right way.
Yep.
You have to be incredibly concerned every day by what your student athletes, how they're performing in the classroom. I mean, the levels of conversation and the consistency of the conversations we have with Tricia Balia, our key academic representative, who's a law professor here, and it's just all world. Mm-hmm. Going, student athlete by student athlete. How's he doing? How's she doing? What resources do he or she do they need? And our coaches understand that. And we had a wonderful roundtable session 2 days ago with Father Bob. Mm-hmm. Father Bob spent most of the day with us, and we had a senior staff meeting with him. We had a town hall for all of our athletic department employees. But then he and I had a lunch with our head coaches, and they went around the room telling their personal stories. And many around the room went to Notre Dame and understand Notre Dame. Others were drawn to Notre Dame because of everything that makes it different and special. But it was such a proud moment for Notre Dame and for the athletic department to hear how invested they are. And it was interesting when it got to Chad Riley and Nate Norman. Chad's our men's soccer coach, Nate's our women's soccer coach. And, it was great to see Father Bob's reaction because they were both Notre Dame graduates. They were both theology majors. Nate had it narrowed down to divinity school or becoming a coach. And it started a nice conversation about how being a head coach at Notre Dame is a mission. It is a mission. You do want to be an educator. You want to, the word Father Bob used is you want to teach, and you also want to accompany these student athletes through their journey through Notre Dame and through life. And it's the way, again, they know what they're doing when it comes to coaching, right? Yeah. But the way they invest in our student athletes, in their education, in their development, in their spiritual development while they're at Notre Dame, it's wonderful to see. And you could go coach by coach by coach, and each one of them is unique and different. And comes at this world through a different lens and a different set of experiences. But I think what they have in common is an appreciation for what Notre Dame is, an appreciation that it's just going to be harder here than it is at other places. And yet they see that as something that is beneficial and an advantage as opposed to a hurdle.
Well, I think we're blessed, right, with amazing coach educators and great role models for student athletes, and they're making indelible impressions on their lives to a coach. We talked a little bit earlier about all of the challenges that you're facing, and consequently, there seems to be so much negativity swirling around about the direction of intercollegiate athletics. Talk about the why the student athlete experience is still so good. Why do the positives still outweigh the negatives?
Well, I think, look at this past weekend in Philadelphia. I mean, that's in a nutshell, that's what it's all about. I mean, these young men, these student athletes rallying around each other, rallying around their university, their coaches, to see their parents. And, those bonds that they create with one another, and to compete at that level and to have all that hard work pay off is an amazing example of why it matters and why it's important. I think of the example of Tyler Buckner. Now, here was an all-world football recruit, came to Notre Dame, played quarterback, made some decisions to try to play somewhere else and to play somewhere else, but yet came back to Notre Dame to get that Notre Dame degree, to win that he played on the lacrosse team and helped them win a national championship. And I had a wonderful conversation with Tyler a few weeks ago, and just how happy he was to be back here. And he said, he learned so much from his time away about that, the relationships with professors, the relationships with fellow students that maybe you take for granted here at Notre Dame when you're so close to it, but when you go see something else somewhere else, it's just different. And so, we're in the midst of this great moment of change and chaos. But Lou, I think it's a positive for us, because I think when things get chaotic, when there's rapid change, it's an unbelievable opportunistic moment in time for strong institutions who can kind of keep that North Star and keep marching toward it. So I think Notre Dame, as strong as we are, my hope, and I don't think I'm being naive, is that we'll come out of this even stronger.
That's a great and a very hopeful note. So let's talk a little bit about financial resources and why you need support from the outside to thrive, especially in this changing, very dynamic intercollegiate world. That there's going to be more budget required for name, image, and likeness. There's challenges for facilities and equipment. We have the Rockne Athletics Fund, which drives unrestricted expendable giving for you. And then we have the efforts to endow grants and aid, also coaching positions. Why is this important, and how do you look at that aspect of the business as being critical to financial solvency.
Yeah, well, there's absolutely more financial pressure than ever. You think about what was announced last week with these settlements against, with the NCAA lawsuits, and we'll see where all that heads. But you're talking, and the best way to think about that settlement is backwards and forwards. You're talking about a $2.8 billion penalty that the NCAA is going to pay, $280 million a year for 10 years. They'll claw that back by less distributions to universities, including us. So that's going to be a financial hit for us. Right. And that's just looking back at a class of athletes, student athletes. And then there's the going forward part of the settlement, which is, okay, universities, now for the first time ever, you can directly compensate and benefit in some form or fashion your student athletes up to a number that's probably going to look like $21 to $22 million a year. That's a financial hit for us. Right. So you have these outside pressures that we're going to have to deal with that a year ago, you would have said something might happen. We don't know what, but now we have a little bit of definition of what that world's going to look like. Right. And oh, by the way, there might be new lawsuits. So it's more important than ever for us to rely on the Notre Dame community for this funding, for the financial relief, for endowing coaching positions. So certainly there is the financial realities of the landscape, which have never been more difficult. Right. Then there is utilizing these types of funding to help with that student athlete experience. One of the great things about the new football facility, the Jack and Kathy Shields Family Hall, is there's going to be a nutritional element in there for all of our student athletes, because that's more important than ever. It gives us the opportunity to reposition the GOOG as a leader in sports science, because that's more important. Things like travel, Lou, to maintain the student athlete experience in a world of conference realignment, in a world where Stanford, Cal, and SMU have entered the ACC. It's one thing for football 6 times a year to venture out and play an away game, but think about our softball team, our baseball team, men's and women's soccer, men's and women's lacrosse, sport by sport by sport. We need the funds to make sure that we can serve our student athletes, whether it's travel, nutrition, all of those elements, so they can maintain some sense of normalcy in this very abnormal collegiate landscape. We want them back on campus. We want them to go out to Stanford, play a baseball game, but get back to campus as soon as we can get them back to campus so they're in class the next day. So there's the financial realities, there are the operational realities, and there are the aspirational goals of maintaining that student athlete experience. So we've never been in need more than we are right now of the generosity of the Notre Dame community to help fuel us to do the things we need to do.
Well said. One final question, and very simple. Any parting words of wisdom? Any reasons for us to be hopeful going forward? You've referenced it a little bit, but any parting thoughts?
Yeah, I'll go back, Lou, because maybe it sounds simple, maybe it sounds Pollyanna, but we're Notre Dame. Yeah. We have unbelievable leadership with Father John and now soon to be Father Bob. We know the team we have here, and we're united behind a mission. I think more so than any other university in the country. And to be able to have that mission of a university, and just, for me in my world of athletics, to know that college athletics are part of that mission, part of the DNA of Notre Dame, that's so important for us. So again, you can see this moment of chaos as something to be afraid of or something to be excited about. And I'm excited about it. I think Notre Dame should be excited about it.
Fantastic. It's been so much fun catching up with you today in this beautiful setting. I want you to know at different moments I felt like Jim Nance. I should have spoken with more dulcimer tones.
Should have said hello, friends.
Hello, friends. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. A little more softly, but it's been
Although he's CBS, not NBC.
Oh, God forbid. No,
that's
exactly.
Fine.
I'm sorry about that bad reference. But you've left that behind.
Absolutely.
Not totally.
Yeah.
Not totally. So, I just want to say that we're really blessed that you came back home to Notre Dame. You're going to be an incredible leader for Notre Dame. In a time of great turmoil, we're grateful for the sacrifices that you and your family are making to be back here, to be leading our athletic programs. And we're really excited to have you as athletic director here at Notre Dame. And I can't wait for the rest of the Notre Dame family to get to meet you and get to know you better in the coming year. And we're really excited and bullish about the future of the program. We always close these sessions, and we invite everybody that is with us to close with a prayer to Our Lady. So please join us in a Hail Mary. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. Again, thanks for being with us. Take care, God bless, and go Irish.